Hello, Pisces, and welcome to the 12th, actually 13th chapter in Dharma, the 2020 spring reading from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino here with the conclusion of all of this. I've done quite a few videos, and I've learned quite a bit in the process. And what I was thinking right before I started this video is, it's a long way to Pisces. For those of us who are here, we have traveled quite a distance and over quite a long period of time through many experiences to end up in the delta of Venus of the zodiac. The last sign, the ocean that refuses no river. And I'd like to speak to you today about your astrology for pretty much the remainder of 2020 and into 21, with an emphasis on really on three things. It's awfully bright. On three things. One of which is the action going on with with your. I'm gonna just hold this here to knock the brightness factor down a little bit. Jupiter conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. Capricorn being one of the most important signs to Pisces that there is, because the 11th place is the place where we really seek our happiness and contentment and success. And your planet is Jupiter, your ruling planet. Though Neptune is in your sign, and Neptune's an important facet of who and what a Pisces is, Jupiter is the planet that we bring with us from antiquity. And there's a transformation happening. And that's easily seen in the series of Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions. And the transformation is typical of your astrology at this time. And the concept here is that there is some form of a transformation going on in terms of how you project yourself into the larger sphere of the culture. Generally, in all things about your chart, there is an expansion that is described. There are also some deeply introspective things that you are exploring about your motives and what inspires you and where it is that you connect with your energy. These things are seen in the retrogrades of Venus, which is in the spring, and of Mars, which is going to be in the autumn. We're right on the cusp of the Venus retrograde, which begins on 5/13 and ends on 6/25. We've been under the influence for a while. Venus has been in shadow phase. But the really big stuff that's happening is described by the many conjunctions that Jupiter is making this year. And those conjunctions include a series of 3 conjunctions to Pluto right in this part of your chart where, oops, that's the $100 bill I've got. It's a fake one, but it's symbolic, because we're going to talk about money and why the quest for money is a good thing for you, because it helps you figure out who you are and gain confidence and gain self-respect. But before we get there, okay, that keeps falling out, so we'll just remember that it's here and leave it on the desk. All right. Before you get there, and the 11th house, where all this Jupiter stuff is going on, is an important financial house because it's a house of the rewards of your profession. And so, in addition to your public profile changing, which would have been a ridiculous thing for an astrologer to say in 1990 or 1980 or 1970. I once read some kind of a critique of a book by an astrologer or something. I don't remember who or quite what this was, chiding the astrologer for talking about publishing enterprises because so few people were in the publishing business in 1970 or 1980 or 1990. Now, today, everyone's in the publishing business. We're all pumping up social media and creating public profiles for ourselves. So the world has changed, and our attenuation to the public sphere has changed, and your attenuation to the public sphere is changing radically. Now, this has been a long warm up, possibly not always the easiest one of transformations in the public realm. As Saturn has made its way through Capricorn, and then previous to that, as Pluto has made its way through Capricorn. But now Jupiter and Pluto are working together, and I consider this to be one of the most positive pairings in astrology, because it is Pluto that gives Jupiter its concentrated ability to work in the realm of meaning. And it is Jupiter that is able to mute the qualities of Pluto in such a way to make it more tenable. And let's say there are some things you have to dilute a little bit before you can appreciate them. Like, I once read an article about whiskey that said if you're going to drink a fine whiskey, all you have to do is cut it in half with water. So there's some things that you want to dilute so that you can bring out the flavor of it. And one of those things is Pluto. And nothing does it as well as Jupiter. Now, if we go back a couple of months to when Saturn was in Capricorn, the whole duration of Saturn in Capricorn from 2017 up until this year, till March 21st, had the flavor of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and so it may not have been that easy. It may have been jolting and jarring and potentially seeming destructive, but that's over now, and Jupiter is working that territory now, and Jupiter is now bringing us the constructive part of Pluto in Capricorn, and the creative part of Pluto in Capricorn, and the self-creative part of Pluto in Capricorn, and the aspect of Pluto conjunct Jupiter conjunct Pluto that I love the most is the idea that all of the great spiritual traditions of the world can be reduced down to a couple of very simple ideas. That they're ultimately in the life of the spirit. There's one lake, and there are many shores to that one lake, and you have the ability to work with that principle, to work with that idea, in a way that informs you and enlightens you and expands your consciousness, and in a sense helps you become an entity that is perhaps universally understood, because you're that golden thread. You become the many shores in the one lake. This is because your ruling planet is making the conjunction to Jupiter, to Pluto, and it's doing so in a region of your chart that is generally accessible. Capricorn, the 11th house. It's also doing so in this region of your chart that is about the rewards of your work. So the very bottom line of these readings is, for you, all the things going on, the planetary retrogrades, the two conjunctions of Saturn and Pluto, and then Jupiter and Saturn, and then the series of conjunctions of Jupiter and Pluto, is that your work is the thing that is now going to flourish in this phase of your life. And by your work, I mean the quality of your work, the beauty and the integrity of your work, but also the viability of your work is the thing where all the fertilizer and the creative potential is going right now. And what I think of as the two most important houses associated with both money and respect are getting a lot of energy and a lot of action. And so the thing to remember as you go through this is that you are in an evolutionary process. You are in a transformation process. You are in a process of growing and expanding. And this is going to happen in some way, shape, or form, whether you like it or not. And therefore, participate in that and guide that and allow it to happen. And please trust that this is all going in a positive direction. Because as far as I can tell, it is, and as far as I can tell, you have paid some dues to get where you are, and you're now in a time of coming of age. These Jupiter conjunctions are indicative of your personal progress, and the order of operations of the personal progress is with Jupiter conjunct Pluto. That is spiritual progress. And then with Jupiter conjunct Saturn, that is material progress. All of this is predicated on the idea that you're doing the right thing. It's also powerful that you could even do the wrong thing and find tremendous success, and then the wrong thing would eventually come home to roost in some way, shape, or form, in a way that you probably didn't like very much. So you want to make sure that you're using this power to create what you want to create rather than to create what you don't want to create. That's the nature of creativity. That's the nature of maturity. That's the nature of being able to use your creative power in a constructive and self-creative way, is to choose what you apply your creative power to. Most people are like running around with their guns going off in all directions, and correspondingly have a tendency to, let's say, invest their sexual power unwisely, and you must make sure that you invest all of your forms of power wisely, including your integrity value, including your monetary power, your creative power, your sexual power. And underneath all of this is this question of respect, of self-respect, and of finding comfort with yourself. I have often done the kind of thing that you see me doing now, whatever the particular topic may be, and have traveled the United States and much of Western Europe and done this kind of work where I have to some extent, be in public and be recognized for it. And I've been thinking lately that why I'm so much more confident now. And it's a matter of experience, but there's also something else, which is that I learned how to be comfortable with myself. And the sad reality is that most of the people you will ever meet are not that comfortable with themselves. It's why you don't have to worry when you walk into a room, walk into a party, walk into a board meeting, walk into a trade show, walk into whatever. The reality is that most of the people who you will look around and see are extremely uncomfortable with themselves, and that if you can at least recognize that, you have a tremendous advantage from a social and business standpoint. And then if you can be comfortable with yourself, which means self-accepting, it means having the ability to adapt and learn efficiently, right? Part of being comfortable with oneself, it requires the ability to learn and the ability to, the ability to adapt who you are to your environment, and that just comes from self-knowledge. And there have been many forces over the past few years conspiring to ensure that you have the requisite experience, and the main thing you have to do is just simply accept that. Accept what you've learned, and accept the gains that you have made in coming to terms with who you are. And on one level, it's not really that easy to do that, but on another level, there's really nothing else to do. And I wish people would just say more directly, well, so I'm doing it. You just have to relax and be comfortable with yourself. And if it helps you at all, remember that most people are walking around feeling like they're not only wearing clothing that doesn't fit and shoes that don't fit, but a face that doesn't fit and a personality that doesn't fit. And you can go to the next step, which is seeing yourself just as someone, one of whose most important roles is to help people relax a little bit about who they are. And this can gain you significant, let's say, social and political power. If you're someone who is just able to help people relax and be themselves, they're going to want to be around you, because that's a good place to be. And it is the sign of having true empathy, which is one of those things that you genuinely are capable of. So I mentioned that the series of Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions takes place in a more overt, open part of your chart, as did the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. You can think of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction as largely being comprised of many things that happened while Saturn was in Capricorn from late 2017 until March 21st of this year. So go ahead and make an inventory, and you'll see now that on the other side of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, there's a very different vibration in the air, and that you are finding it much more easy to become directly involved and to quickly go to the common ground level with people. And again, this is a gift of Jupiter-Pluto. The year concludes with a third conjunction involving Jupiter, which is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. This takes place in Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign before your sign. I'm getting tired of holding up this book, so I'm going to do as little as possible. The sign before your sign is house number 12. It's the most challenging and complicated house to understand, and therefore is my favorite house. And so if you're Aquarius, Capricorn is the sign before yours, it's the 12th. If you're Capricorn, Sagittarius is the sign before. And it contains much of who you are in a kind of a covert way. The last major thing to happen in Capricorn was Neptune, in Aquarius, in your 12th house, was Jupiter. Sorry, I'm getting a little fatigued. Was Neptune passing through the territory, which took a long time. It was approximately a decade preceding 2012. So it's really in the early, very first years of the 21st century. Neptune made its way into Aquarius, and this was difficult, more difficult than the current position of Neptune in Pisces, which is responsible for all kinds of delusion that we're seeing going on, all kinds of if I think it's true stuff going on that is completely proliferating, like poison ivy on the internet. But for you, it is it's a power that you must reckon with. The presence of Neptune in Pisces, Neptune being the modern ruler of Pisces, I don't really think of them. I'm a little iffy on the modern rules, but that's the way that it's said. I think the modern rules can be used if we've looked at the traditional ruler first, which we did. I just spent 15 minutes talking about Jupiter. So once we've analyzed, understood, paid attention to, and gotten the message of whatever Jupiter is doing, then let's go to Neptune. Neptune it's even hard to describe what it's about in Pisces, but what it gives you is the ability to shapeshift. It gives you the ability to adapt. It can also be a thing that saps your confidence and your energy, and you have to learn how to use the adaptive power of Neptune in your sign to gain confidence and substance rather than to have it taken away. You have a lot of help with this. And in a way, you don't have to worry too much about Neptune in Pisces, because there's nothing you can do about it except be as aware of it as you possibly can. And then further, let yourself be of ethereal substance. Pisces is ethereal. Neptune is ethereal. You put the two together, it's even more ethereal. You don't have to work so hard to define yourself as you see many people doing, to brand yourself in some way, or to have one thing you're associated with, name yourself in some way. I would just let Neptune work as a thing that can allow you to define yourself in any way that you want, for whatever purpose that you want. The concept of calling yourself something is useful only to the degree that it gives you an advantage. So you may have a definition of what it means to be a writer or an artist or a musician. There is not a writer or an artist musician alive who is truly involved in the really vulnerable creative part of their work, who doesn't in some way doubt what they do. And should I really be called that? And the best way to work it is, after a while, you just figure out that that's what you are, and there you go. So let that Neptune in Pisces be a thing that allows you to morph and adapt your personality into any situation that you need to be in, and also use the tremendous border boundary crossing property that Neptune grants. Neptune has a bit of a walk through walls and read their mind kind of property, and if you use this in a gentle and loving way, you can find that it gives you all kinds of access, and also allows you to be in possession of pretty much infinite inspiration and ideas. Okay, back to the 12th house for a second. And this is a similar kind of a message. This most substantial and tangible conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn takes place in the 12th house. Even the most awesome, expansive, put the two biggest planets together for a big result happens in a place that is not easy to define, which therefore you can define any way that you want, though it will help if you are not carrying around baggage from the past. And it's a commitment, it's a journey, it can be greatly helped by spiritual and therapy process, and you have to test the thing about baggage from the past at all times. You have to see how you respond to old partners, old situations, things that from the past that come up. Observe your patterns associated with attachment and jealousy in your relationships. Notice the things that push your buttons and trigger you, and then you're actively involved in the true experiment of the role and the meaning of the past, as opposed to some concept that you plaster on it. Like, oh yeah, I've resolved the past. I've now been to 10 yoga retreats, I've healed, or whatever. That's not particularly helpful. But when you start to find yourself, for example, in the middle of a very challenging situation, and you're just completely calm and you're handling it in a full spectrum way, that's a good indicator of progress. Nobody's going to put hang a plaque on your wall. Okay, you're starting to get the idea. So it's the sensation of progress is lived. It's lived reality. Now, let's talk about these interplanet retrogrades that are happening. They are happening in two sensitive zones of your chart. They're happening on the interior angle of your chart, the interior hemisphere rather, and the interior hemisphere is everything below this horizon line. So all this is under the horizon, and the two retrogrades are occurring in house number 2, which is about movable possessions, money, and self-respect, and then house number 4, which is about security and self-confidence, and a certain relationship to ancestral issues, in the more immediate sense. The money piece of your chart and the let's say enhanced and expanded ability to prosper is indicated first in the 11th house, because remember, the 11th is the second of the 10th, and anywhere there's a second of something, that's going to be a money house, right? So for example, if the 7th is marriage, the 8th is the money created in the partnership. If the 8th is the money created in the partnership, the second of the 8th is the ethics connected with that. Okay, maybe not the best examples, but the second of the 10th is the 11th. That's why Jupiter-Pluto is so important. And that's why Jupiter-Pluto is saying that in terms of the work that you do, what you know is very important, but it's nothing without the who you know. And so this is saying make sure that you not only network, which is a term I fucking hate, but that you gain trust and confidence mutually with the people who you are involved with and invested in. Mutual trust and confidence as a thing earned over time in Capricorn style. The chances are there's good few people in your life with whom you have gained this mutual trust and confidence over time, and you need to identify who they are and engage them in a conversation and talk about your plans with them and find out their plans. All right, that said, let's go house number 4 first, because this is the first of the 2 retrogrades. It takes place May 13th through June 25th, and then Venus goes direct, and then will enter Cancer eventually later in the year. Right now, it's doing this very special thing, which is making a retrograde in Gemini. I don't have it really drawn in there, but you can just imagine. Venus is there now, conjunct Vesta and this Centaur. It's going to go back and then stop, and it takes 6 weeks. This is about learning to be at home. Learning to be at home everywhere. We're doing a lot of being at home now at the moment. That's going to start to end, but I suggest you continue to orient your life around your home for as long as you can and for as long as you need to. And it's very important that Pisces orients their life around their home. And you're getting a message that this is the thing to do now because of this Venus retrograde. And Venus is an extension of Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus is one of your planets. And when we find Venus in the 4th house at home, conjunct the goddess Vesta, hearth goddess, and an organizing principle, also at home. And so you are not only at home, you're at home with the domestic goddess Hestia, Vesta, and that is to say, gather your real love and focus and energy right with you. the altar in your home is the most important altar. The things that you do, the conversations in your home that you have are the most important things that you do. That's your organizing principle. The concept of Vesta is, there's a dedication and devotion concept. There's the selfless service concept of Vesta. And then there is also the organization of space and the organizing principle. Work with space. Space is intelligence. Space is not just physical rooms. Space is, and the way that you use space and interrelate with space has everything to do with how you tap and access your intelligence, how you use your mind. And Venus is all about the cultivation of the mind as an emotional sensitivity, not emoting in the active external sense, but in the receptive sense of the concept of sensitivity. And it's also an attractive force. So bring things into your home and let your home be the organizing principle. In the course of doing this, I suggest you think actively and keep one of those notebooks I'm fond of suggesting people keep, of what it is you want to be true about your home. In the course of Venus retrograde, you may make a decision about your home. You may make a decision that you want a different home, or you want to change your home, or you want to think of your home in a different way. You might decide that you want to move. You might make any number of decisions. But the emphasis on home is so strong with this Venus retrograde, and the added emphasis of Vesta, one of the patron saints of all things planet waves, is saying, okay, use this as your organizing principle and see where that leads you, see where that guides you, and where it takes you. The sexual healing element of Vesta, particularly conjunct Venus, is very important. I would propose that in the fourth house theme, that you consider all of the domestic partnerships that you have had or that you have wanted to have, and that you consider a central topic for healing all of the things that happen in those relationships, and then consider, possibly at the same time or in parallel, the nature of the domestic partnerships that your parents and your grandparents had, because these are the relationships that set the example. These are the relationships where we model what we think is going to be true, and that often leave quite a bit of baggage and residue in our lives, and you want to account for that. You want to get a feeling for what that is. You want to understand why it is you think about the nexus of home and relationships in quite the way that you do, and the way that you think about home and your sexuality. There's interesting things about that. Like, there are some people who only want to go to their lover's home. There's some people who want all their lovers to come to them. There's some people who only have sex with someone that they're cohabitating with. There's a lot of ways to think of the relationship between sex and one's home space. And now's the time to do that. Also, your kitchen is very, very important now. Vesta is the hearth. The hearth is the center of the home and is the kitchen. And so make your kitchen the central laboratory of your life, and work your kitchen. Keep your supplies fresh and relevant, and use your kitchen as a way to nurture people and to nurture yourself, and to define, in this sense of organizing principle associated with Vesta, to define the organizing principle of your life. The second retrograde takes place in the autumn between 9/9 and 11/13, and that's in your second house. This is some kind of big movement on the financial front for you. It is a an exploration of your true worth and the worth of your work. It's an exploration of the value that you put upon yourself, and it is an exploration of respecting yourself. It is not written about in any of the numerous astrology books behind me how important money is to Pisces. Normally with Pisces, you'll read about how, like, well, they just like to peace out, and money's not really that important, and creativity and love are more important, and all that stuff. Well, I think that the quest for money is one of the most spiritually enlightening things that a Pisces person can do. It is something that will help you focus your mind and your willpower, and something that will help you gain confidence. So in a sense, it's not money for its own sake. It's money for the sake of the experience of being able to do it. And there's plenty of people who, in the world, who lack confidence specifically because they can't make enough money. And there's plenty of people who lack confidence in what they do because, for example, they can't make their artwork into something that supports them. And I would propose that the time is exactly right for you to do this, to work all of this, all of these combined influences that are raising your value. This Jupiter-Pluto thing is raising your value. Jupiter-Saturn will raise your value because it's going to give you such a sense of your own substance that you will not doubt your value. And then Mars retrograde in the second house is going to be this profound exploration of your values and your sense of what you're worth, which is all about a sense of who you are. Where there's Aries in your chart is where you're going to seek your identity. And you have that on the second house. And so how you earn your money is crucial to your sense of your identity and your self-respect. And the thing that you will learn is, if you haven't already learned it 100 times over, is that you must make your money in a way that's consistent and compatible with your values. This is one of the main challenges people face in our society is, well, they figure out how to make money, but then they can't make money doing something that's right for them, that they know is the right thing. That's a tough place to be in, where like you get to a certain age and you realize, well, the only way I know how to make money is in a way that I don't really approve of. Not your thing at all. Make those connections between what you know is right and true and consistent with your values, and that is also valuable to others. These connections are makeable. The first step in any business plan should be the question, not how do I sell my stuff, but what do I do that's the right thing that I do, that I like to do, that I'm good at, that has a value to others, because that's where the transaction takes place. The transaction doesn't take place because someone feels charitable for you. The transaction takes place because somebody needs you. So don't be afraid to be needed and to construct your reality around that which is necessary and needed in the world, as long as it's coming from you. This shirt, which I'm fond of wearing, is the business of one of my favorite people in the world, a guy named Matt Brewster, who's built this business in New York City, where it is okay. So if you've ever bought a guitar or like had an instrument, bought your kid an instrument, it is not easy to find somebody who can actually set that instrument up and make it play the way that it's supposed to play. And most people who own guitars and other musical instruments, it's very uncomfortable to play the instrument. Matt Brewster has created this business in New York City, the home of many of the great musicians in the world. And if they don't live there, they pass through there, where the work is absolutely impeccable, where he knows exactly what you need and how to give it to you. He can take any instrument and make it decent and make any good instrument excellent. And he's sitting there all day in the back. You walk through the the guitar store. You request permission to approach the bench. Of course, he says, "Come on back." And he's sitting there at his workbench, spinning out pure joy in the craftsmanship that he's doing. All day long, 6 days a week, for decades on end. And if you walk in at 11 o'clock in the morning, you say, "I've got a gig tonight and my bass won't start up," he's the guy who'll make it perfect by 4 o'clock and possibly not even charge you a rush fee if you're friendly to him. And if you're a jerk, he'll charge you a rush fee. That's Dharma. That's where you want to be. Not only that, all the best used guitars are out in the front. He only sells used guitars, and apart from the ones that he makes himself. And then he somehow attracted this group of people around him who have this level of quality, who have I go back and I meet the guys in the back of the shop, and I'm wondering, how did he even find people who can do the work up to his own standards in this world? This is someone who is absolutely joyous in the work that he's doing. He's found a thing that is of value. He is surrounded by people who value him and absolutely love him, and he is the best. I had 10 different people work on my instruments. Some of them reputed and famous and expensive. It's like, not even close. That's where you want to be. That's the space of loving your activity for its own sake and having something that is valuable, which you do, many things that are valuable that you put in a place where you are needed, and then the people who need you find you, and you build your reputation based purely on your ability to provide the service that you provide in the loving way that you provide the service. And that's Dharma. Look, of all the definitions of enlightenment on the planet, of all the billion courses taught at the Omega Institute in every ashram between here and Mumbai, between Sullivan County and Mumbai, down there where all the gurus hang out near me, one county over, and all the temples in Tibet, one of the most important concepts of enlightenment in our culture is loving your work and succeeding at your work. Yes, there's a couple of other things in your chart, but this is the one. Loving your work and succeeding at your work and experiencing value not as an abstract concept, but as a thing that you exchange with people where there is pleasure in both parts of the exchange, where the people who spend their money on you just love to spend their money on you because what you do is so beautiful. And then for you, it's like, wow, this is really nice. I'm doing something I really love to do, and people are interested. And they come back. That's the message of your astrology right now. And your star is on the rise in terms of the ability to connect these values, to connect these layers of meaning, to connect the intangible and the tangible, to connect the spiritual and the material, and in all ways to act as if to hold the world together. You can do your bit. You can hold the world together. It starts with having your world be workable. Vesta Venus is saying, get your home in order. Make sure that it serves your purpose. Make sure you know the central organizing principle of your space and the central organizing principle of every room in your space, and keep that home fire burning. On that note, I conclude these 12 readings of the Dharma series, the 2020 spring reading, video reading traditionally from Planet Waves, which means me and my friends who are going to put this thing on the internet and get it into your hands ASAP. If you're not Pisces rising, which you might be, please check out your rising sign, check out your moon sign. All of these readings are completely different. They don't even resemble each other, and there's something for everyone in every one of these readings. So feel free to go exploring if you have access. I'm going to make sure that as many people have access as possible. Okay, that's it. Signing off at 7:37 p.m. on the 3rd day of May, 2020 in this Beltane season. Thank you. Love you. It's great working for you. It's the best thing. And bye for now.